It was a Tuesday evening in late September, the kind of evening where the sunset bleeds orange through the kitchen windows, painting everything in false warmth. I was standing in our hallway, phone pressed to my ear, listening to my business partner confirm what I'd suspected for 3 months. "Logan, I'm sorry," David said quietly. "The charges on the company card, they match the hotel. Room 847. It's been going on since June." My hand didn't shake. My voice didn't break. I simply said, "Thank you," and ended the call. Through the archway, I could see Emma in the living room, laughing at something on her phone. Her hair caught the dying light, the same auburn I'd loved since college. She was texting rapidly, smiling in that specific way, the way she used to smile at my messages, back when I was still someone who mattered. I walked into the room and sat down across from her. She didn't look up. "Who's making you smile like that?" I asked. The question hung in the air for 3 seconds. Then she glanced at me with those green eyes that had once promised forever. "Just Rachel," she said. "Wedding planning stuff." Rachel was getting married in November. Emma was the maid of honor. I knew this. I also knew Rachel's bachelorette party had been last weekend, not tonight. And I knew that Emma's location history showed she'd been at the Riverside Hotel every Thursday for the past 12 weeks. I could have confronted her then, could have thrown the evidence across the coffee table and watched her scramble for explanations. But something inside me had already gone cold and distant. The man who would have fought for this marriage had died quietly somewhere between discovering the affair and this moment. Instead, I said, "I'm going to take a walk." She finally looked at me fully. Now, I was thinking we could order Thai food. "You go ahead," I said. "I'm not hungry." I left her there, bathed in the glow of her phone screen, already returning to her conversation with him, because it was a him. I'd known that for weeks. His name was Trevor Hastings, a regional sales director she'd met at a conference in Phoenix, 34 years old, divorced, drives a BMW, tells her she's wasted on a boring guy like your husband. I'd read their messages 2 months ago when she'd left her laptop open. At first, I'd felt the expected rage, the crushing weight of betrayal. But then something stranger happened. As I scrolled through their conversations, the late-night confessions, the explicit photos, the plans they made behind my back, I felt myself detaching, like watching someone else's tragedy unfold on a screen. She'd written to him, "Logan is safe, stable. But God, Trevor, when I'm with you, I feel alive. I feel wanted. He'd never leave me anyway. He needs me too much." That line stayed with me. He'd never leave me. She'd built her entire affair on that assumption, that I was too comfortable, too invested, too weak to ever walk away, that I'd forgive her if it ever came out, because what else would I do? Start over at 38? She'd married me because I was reliable, stayed with me because I was convenient, and betrayed me because she believed I'd always be there to come back to. That night, I walked for hours through our neighborhood, past the houses where we'd imagined raising children, past the park where we'd had our first kiss 13 years ago, past everything we'd built together, and I felt nothing but a hollow clarity. I didn't sleep that night. While Emma snored softly beside me, I lay in the darkness making calculations. Our marriage had been eroding for years. I could see that now. The way she'd stopped asking about my day. The way intimacy had become a monthly obligation rather than a connection. The way she'd look at me sometimes with something close to pity, as if she was disappointed that I'd never become someone more impressive. I'd ignored all of it, told myself every marriage had rough patches, made excuses for her emotional distance, worked harder to be the husband I thought she needed. What a fool I'd been. By morning, I knew exactly what I had to do. Over the next 6 weeks, I moved in complete silence. First, I consulted with Richard Brennan, a divorce attorney David recommended. "Before you do anything visible," Richard advised, "we need to document everything and protect your assets." "Does she know you're aware?" "No," I said, "and I want to keep it that way until I'm ready." "Smart," Richard nodded. "In cases like this, the element of surprise is your greatest advantage." I opened a separate bank account at a different institution. Slowly, carefully, I began redirecting portions of my income. Nothing dramatic enough to alert Emma. She barely looked at our finances anyway, but steady enough to build a foundation. I photographed documents, downloaded bank statements, saved the cloud backup of her messages with Trevor, built an evidence file that would make any divorce proceeding swift and decisive. I contacted Lisa Mercer, a private investigator Richard recommended. Within 2 weeks, she'd documented everything. Photos of Emma and Trevor entering hotels together, receipts from restaurants where they'd spent hundreds of my money on romantic dinners, a timeline that showed the affair was even more extensive than I'd realized. "Your wife is extremely careless," Lisa told me, handing over the final report. "She's not even trying to hide it. That tells me something." "What?" "She doesn't think there will be consequences." I looked down at the photo on top of the file. Emma laughing in Trevor's arms outside a restaurant I'd never heard of. She looked radiant, completely free, more alive than she'd seemed in years of being married to me. "She's right about one thing," I said quietly. "There won't be the consequences she expects." At home, nothing changed on the surface. Emma continued her routine: work, gym, mysterious evening plans. I continued mine: work, home, playing the devoted husband. We existed in the same space, but had stopped occupying the same world long ago. Sometimes I'd catch her watching me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Guilt, maybe, or assessment, calculating whether I suspected anything, whether I was still safely under her control. I always smiled, always asked about her day, always played the part perfectly. "You seem good lately," she said one night in late October. We were in the kitchen, her watching me cook dinner while scrolling through her phone. More relaxed. "I feel good," I said. And it wasn't a lie. For the first time in months, I felt clarity. Purpose. The grief would come later, I knew. But right now, I was running on pure, cold determination. "Maybe we should plan a vacation," she suggested. "After Rachel's wedding. Just the two of us. Reconnect." I looked at her then. Really looked at her. She meant it, in her way. She wanted to keep me comfortable, keep the marriage intact while maintaining her affair, have her stability and her excitement, her safety net and her thrill. "That sounds nice," I said. "Let's talk about it after the holidays." She smiled, satisfied. The conversation reminded her that I was still here, still invested, still waiting for whatever scraps of attention she was willing to throw my way. She had no idea I'd already stopped waiting. In November, I made my final preparations. I'd been quietly applying for positions across the country. My field, architectural software design, was niche enough to be valuable and mobile enough to work remotely from anywhere. 3 companies had expressed strong interest. One, based in Seattle, had made a serious offer. The salary was 30% higher than my current position. The start date was flexible. "We'd love to have you on board, Logan," the hiring manager said during our final call. "Your work speaks for itself. When can you start?" "I'll need 6 weeks," I said. "I have some personal matters to resolve first." "Take your time. We'll be ready when you are." I accepted the position, signed the contract, set everything in motion. I also did something else. Something I'd been considering since the night I'd walked through the neighborhood feeling like a ghost in my own life. I legally changed my name. The process was simpler than I'd expected. File the petition, publish the notice, appear before a judge. By the 3rd week of November, I was no longer Logan Matthew Pierce. Officially, legally, I had become Connor James Reed. The judge had asked me why. "It's personal, Your Honor," I'd said. "A fresh start." She'd nodded, understanding in her eyes. Fresh starts are important. Granted. Walking out of that courthouse, I felt something shift inside me. Logan Pierce was the man who'd been betrayed, diminished, taken for granted. Connor Reed was whoever I'd decided to be next. Emma never noticed the paperwork I'd hidden in my office, never saw the mail I'd redirected to a P.O. box, never suspected that her reliable, predictable husband was systematically erasing himself from their shared life. The week of Rachel's wedding arrived. Emma was consumed with last-minute preparations, barely home. When she was around, she was distracted, her phone constantly buzzing with messages she'd hide the moment I walked into a room. On Wednesday, 3 days before the wedding, I came home early and found her on our bed. FaceTime call open on her laptop. Trevor's face filled the screen. I could hear him mid-sentence. "Can't wait until you're finally free of—" She noticed me in the doorway. Her face went white. "Logan, Don't," I said quietly. She closed the laptop quickly, standing up. That wasn't what it looked like. I walked to my dresser and pulled out the envelope I'd been carrying in my jacket for 2 weeks. I set it on the bed between us. "What is that?" she asked. "Divorce papers, already filed, already processed. You just need to sign?" The color drained from her face completely now. "What? Logan, no, we need to talk about this." "There's nothing to talk about, Emma." "You can't just— We've been together for 13 years. You can't throw that away without even discussing." "I'm not the one who threw it away." My voice was level, calm, completely without anger. "You did that months ago." She started crying. The tears came fast and dramatic, the way they always did when she needed something from me. "Please, it was a mistake. He doesn't mean anything. You're my husband, Logan. You're my person." "No," I said. "I'm your safety net. There's a difference." "I'll end it right now. I'll block him. We can go to counseling. We can fix this." I looked at her for a long moment. This woman I'd loved since I was 25. This woman who'd promised to build a life with me, who'd stood in front of our families and friends and vowed to honor that promise. This woman who'd thrown all of it away because she was bored, because I wasn't exciting enough, because she believed I'd never have the courage to leave. "Read the papers," I said. "Everything is already divided. Fair, but final. You get the house. I've already moved my essentials out. My lawyer will contact you next week to coordinate the rest." "Moved out? When? Where?" "That's not your concern anymore." She grabbed my arm as I turned to leave. "Logan, please, don't do this. I love you." I gently removed her hand. "You love having me. There's a difference." "Where are you going?" "Somewhere you'll never find me." The look on her face, the dawning realization that I wasn't bluffing, that I wasn't going to fight or beg or demand explanations, was something I'll remember forever. She'd expected rage, expected me to need closure, to need her to explain herself, to need something from her that would give her power in this ending. But I needed nothing from her anymore. I walked out of our bedroom, down the stairs, past the photos on the wall showing our history, engagement, wedding, vacations, holidays, all of it already ancient history, already belonging to someone I used to be. She followed me to the door, still crying, still pleading. "Logan, you can't just disappear. We have a life here. We have friends, family. What am I supposed to tell people?" I paused at the threshold. "Tell them the truth. Tell them you got bored with your marriage and found excitement somewhere else. Tell them your husband wasn't enough for you. Tell them whatever you want, Emma. I won't be here to contradict it. But where— Goodbye, Emma." I closed the door on her voice, got into my car, already packed with everything I needed, and I drove away from the only home I'd known for 8 years without looking back. By the time she thought to check my phone location, I'd already disabled it. By the time she thought to track my credit cards, I'd already canceled them and opened new ones under my new name. By the time she realized I was serious, I was already gone. Connor Reed didn't exist in her world, and Logan Pierce had stopped existing altogether. I drove through the night, putting miles between myself and the ghost of my old life. By morning, I was in a different state. By evening, I was standing in my new apartment in Seattle, looking out at a view of the Sound, feeling lighter than I had in years, The grief came that night. Sitting alone in my empty apartment, I finally let myself feel the weight of what I'd lost. Not Emma. I'd lost Emma long before I left. But the dream of what we were supposed to be, the future we'd planned, the foolish hope that love and commitment meant something. I cried for the man I'd been, for his trust, for his dedication, for all the ways he'd tried to be enough for someone who would never value him. Then I washed my face, made coffee, and started planning my new life. The first few months in Seattle were a blur of work and rebuilding. My new position was challenging in ways that awakened parts of my brain I'd forgotten existed. The projects were complex, the team was brilliant, and for the first time in years, I felt valued for my contributions. "Connor," my boss, Michelle, said after my first major presentation, "that was exceptional. Where have you been hiding?" "Just found the right opportunity," I said. At night, I explored the city, took up running along the waterfront, joined a book club at a local cafe, started cooking elaborate meals for myself instead of the simple dinners I'd made to accommodate Emma's picky eating, rediscovered who I was when I wasn't constantly adjusting myself to fit someone else's expectations. I made new friends who knew nothing about my past. To them, I was Connor, successful software architect, recently relocated, enjoying single life in the city. They didn't know about Logan, about the marriage, about any of it. And that freedom was intoxicating. 3 months after I left, David called me. "Man," he said, "you need to hear this." "What happened?" "Emma has been absolutely losing it. She's been calling everyone we know trying to find you. She hired a private investigator, but apparently you covered your tracks too well. She even called your parents." "What did they say?" "Your dad told her you made your choice, and she needs to respect it. Your mom was less diplomatic. I think the exact words were, 'You made your bed with Trevor. Now sleep in it.'" I'd told my parents everything before I left, showed them the evidence. They'd been furious on my behalf, supportive of my decision to start over completely. "What about Trevor?" I asked. David laughed, but it was bitter. "That's the best part. He dumped her. Apparently having an affair with a married woman is exciting. Actually dating that woman once she's free? Not so much. He wanted the thrill, not the reality of Emma's baggage." I felt nothing hearing this. No satisfaction. No vindication. Just a distant acknowledgement that consequences had arrived. "She's been posting cryptic things on social media," David continued. "Quotes about forgiveness and second chances, photos of your wedding day. Everyone can tell she's falling apart." "That's unfortunate," I said, and I meant it. I didn't hate Emma. I just didn't care anymore. Her suffering didn't heal anything in me, because I'd already healed myself by leaving. "She also lost her job," David added. "Apparently the affair was with someone she met through work, and when it came out, along with the fact that she'd been using company time and resources to meet him, HR wasn't thrilled. Plus, the divorce and your disappearance caused quite a bit of gossip. She's been interviewing, but nothing's panned out yet." "I'm sorry to hear that," I said. And again, I meant it. I didn't wish Emma harm. I just wished her out of my life, which she already was. "You're handling this better than I expected," David observed. "I grieved the marriage while I was still in it," I said. "By the time I left, there was nothing left to mourn." 6 months after my departure, I met someone. Her name was Olivia Chen. She was a project manager at a partner firm, sharp and funny and completely unimpressed by pretense. We met at a networking event where I'd been asked to speak about sustainable design architecture. "Your presentation was good," she said, approaching me afterward, "but you missed the most important point." I smiled. "Which is?" "That beautiful design means nothing if the people using it aren't considered in every decision. You talked about the building. You should have talked about the community." She was right, and her directness was refreshing after years of navigating Emma's passive-aggressive communication style. "Buy me a coffee and explain how I should have done it," I said. "I don't drink coffee after 6. Then dinner, and you can lecture me properly." She studied me for a moment, then smiled. Okay, Connor Reed, you've got yourself a deal. That dinner turned into a second date, then a third, then late-night conversations that stretched into early morning, talking about everything from architecture to philosophy to our favorite terrible movies. Olivia knew I'd been married before. I told her early on, keeping it simple. It ended badly. She made choices that showed me I deserved better, so I left and started over. Good for you, Olivia said. A lot of people stay in situations that hurt them because change is scary. It was terrifying, I admitted. But necessary. And now I'm here, with you, feeling like myself for the first time in years. She reached across the table and took my hand. Then I'm glad you're here, Connor. We took it slow. Neither of us was in a rush. But what we built was real, founded on honesty and mutual respect, and the kind of easy partnership I'd once believed marriage was supposed to be. A year after I left my old life, I'd been promoted to senior architect. I'd bought a small house in Seattle's Fremont neighborhood with a workshop where I'd started building furniture as a hobby. I'd found a community of people who valued me for who I was, not what I could provide them. I was happy. Actually, genuinely happy in a way that had nothing to do with anyone else and everything to do with the life I'd built for myself. I'd stopped thinking about Emma entirely. She'd become a character in someone else's story, someone I used to know in another lifetime. Then, on a rainy Tuesday in October, exactly 2 years after that evening when David called to confirm the affair, I ran into her. I was in Portland for a conference, having drinks with colleagues at a hotel bar. I saw her before she saw me. She was at a corner table, alone, staring into a glass of white wine. She looked older, tired in a way that had nothing to do with lack of sleep and everything to do with carrying heavy regret. For a moment, I considered leaving before she noticed me, but then she looked up, and our eyes met across the room. Her face transformed. Shock, then recognition, then something like desperate hope. She stood immediately and walked over. My colleagues had gone outside for a smoke, so I was alone when she reached my table. "Logan," she breathed. "That's not my name anymore," I said calmly. "What? I legally changed it. I'm Connor now. Connor Reed." She sat down uninvited, her eyes never leaving my face. "You changed your name? You really did disappear completely." "Yes. I looked for you everywhere. For months. Your parents wouldn't tell me anything. David wouldn't return my calls. It was like you died, Logan. Connor, like you'd just ceased to exist." "That was the point," she flinched. "I needed to talk to you, to explain, to—" "There's nothing to explain, Emma. And even if there was, I don't need to hear it. But I need you to know, Trevor was a mistake. The whole thing was a mistake. I was selfish and stupid, and I destroyed the best thing in my life. I've been trying to—" "Emma," I interrupted gently. "I don't care." She stared at me. "What?" "I don't care about Trevor, about why you did it, about your regrets. I don't care about any of it. You're a stranger to me now." "We were married for 8 years, and you spent the last year of that marriage betraying everything we built. You made your choice. I made mine. Both of us have to live with the consequences." Tears filled her eyes. "I've lost everything. Trevor left me the week after you did. My job, they fired me. My friends, they all sided with you. My mom barely speaks to me because she's so ashamed. I've been living with my sister, working temp jobs, trying to put my life back together. I felt sympathy for her pain, the way I'd feel sympathy for any struggling human being. But I felt no responsibility for fixing it. "I'm sorry you're going through that," I said, "but it's not my problem anymore." "How can you be so cold? You loved me once." "I did. Very much. And you took that love and crushed it because you were bored, because I wasn't exciting enough. Because you believed I'd always be there no matter what you did to me. I was wrong. Yes, you were. About everything. But especially about me never leaving. I left, Emma. I left so thoroughly that the man you married doesn't exist anymore. Is there any chance? No. The finality in my voice made her draw back as if I'd slapped her. You're happy, she said, noticing something in my face. You're actually happy. I am. Is there someone else? Yes. The word hit her like a physical blow. You found someone? You moved on? I built a new life. Met someone who values partnership the way you never did. Created something real with her. I valued our partnership. No, Emma. You valued having someone reliable at home while you pursued excitement elsewhere. You valued the security I provided while having zero respect for the person providing it. That's not partnership. That's exploitation. She started crying in earnest now. Quiet, broken sobs that shook her shoulders. Part of me, the part that had loved her once, wanted to comfort her. But that part was too small now. Too distant. The man I'd become had no space for rescuing someone who'd pushed him into drowning. I think about you every day, she whispered. I dream about you, about us, about getting a second chance to do it right. We don't get second chances, I said. We get consequences. You're living with yours. I'm living with mine. The difference is, mine are beautiful. My colleagues were returning from outside. Emma saw them approaching and stood quickly. Connor, she said, testing the name. It's a good name. A strong name. It suits who you've become. Thank you. I hope you're really happy. I hope she treats you the way I should have. I hope you get everything you deserved and never got from me. I already have it. She nodded, accepting this. Then, in a voice so quiet I almost didn't hear it, I'm sorry. For all of it. I'm so sorry. I know you are, I said, but it doesn't change anything. Goodbye, Emma. She walked away, shoulders bent under the weight of everything she'd lost. I watched her go and felt nothing but a quiet sense of closure. She'd wanted forgiveness or reconciliation, or at least some sign that I still cared enough to be angry. But I'd given her something much more devastating, complete indifference to whether she was sorry or not. My colleague Tom sat down, watching Emma's retreating figure. Ex-wife? Yeah, first time seeing her since I left. How do you feel? I considered the question honestly. Grateful. For who I was brave enough to become when I walked away from who she needed me to be. That's deep, man, Tom said. I smiled. Also hungry. Let's order dinner. We moved on to other topics. The conference, work, weekend plans. Emma faded back into irrelevance, a brief interruption in an otherwise good evening. That night, I called Olivia from my hotel room. Hey, she said, her voice warm. How's Portland? Good. Something interesting happened, though. I told her about seeing Emma, about the conversation, about the finality of it. How do you feel? Olivia asked. Like I closed a book I'd already finished reading, I said. Confirmed the ending, but nothing about it surprised me or changed how I feel about the story. She really hurt you, didn't she? She did. But I hurt myself more by staying too long, by making excuses for her, by believing I could be enough for someone who didn't value what I was offering. Leaving her was the healthiest thing I ever did. I'm glad you left, Olivia said softly. Selfishly. Because otherwise, I wouldn't have found you. I wouldn't have found me either, I said. The best version of myself required walking away from someone who only wanted the most convenient version. Come home soon, she said. I miss you. 2 more days. And Olivia? Yeah, I love you. A pause. Then, I love you too, Connor. We'd said it before, but tonight it felt different. Deeper. Like a promise that we'd both protect what we were building. That we'd both show up fully. that neither of us would take the other for granted. The conference ended 3 days later. I flew home to Seattle, to Olivia waiting at the airport with coffee and that smile that made everything else irrelevant. We drove to the house I'd bought, the one she'd been slowly moving her things into over the past few months. "So," she said as we pulled into the driveway, "are you going to tell me what really happened in Portland? The deeper stuff?" I looked at her. This woman who'd seen me clearly from day one, who'd never asked me to be anything other than exactly who I was. "Seeing Emma confirmed something," I said. "That leaving was the bravest thing I ever did, and that building this life with you is the smartest—" "Pretty smooth, Reed. I have my moments." We went inside, to the home we were creating together, to the life I'd built from ashes, to the future that looked nothing like what I'd once planned, and everything like what I'd needed all along. That night, lying next to Olivia, I thought about the man I'd been 2 years ago. Logan Pierce, standing in his hallway, learning the truth about his marriage. I wanted to tell him what I knew now, that the ending he feared would actually be the beginning. That walking away would hurt less than staying, that the life waiting on the other side of his courage would be worth every terrifying step. But he'd figure it out. He'd find his way to becoming Connor Reed, to becoming someone who understood that love without respect is worthless. That loyalty to someone who betrays you is just self-destruction by another name. That sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself is leave. Emma texted me once, 6 months after Portland. A simple message. "I heard you're getting married. I'm happy for you, really." She's lucky. I didn't respond. There was nothing left to say. Olivia and I did get married, on a perfect October afternoon in a small ceremony at Discovery Park. No big wedding, no drama. Just 50 people who loved us, witnessing us promise to choose each other every day. During our vows, I promised Olivia honesty, partnership, and the kind of love that shows up even when it's inconvenient. She promised me the same. We both meant it. As I slipped the ring on her finger, I caught sight of my reflection in her eyes. Connor Reed looked back at me. Happy, whole, home in a way Logan Pierce never was. Later, at the reception, David raised a glass to toast us. "To Connor and Olivia," he said, "and to having the courage to build the life you deserve, even when it means leaving the one you thought you wanted." Everyone drank. I caught Olivia's hand under the table and squeezed it gently. "No regrets," she whispered. "Not a single one." And I meant it. Not about leaving. Not about changing my name. Not about starting over from nothing. Because nothing had led to everything. Emma's betrayal had freed me to find this. Her belief that I'd never leave had pushed me to discover I absolutely could. Years later, when people ask about my past, I keep it simple. I was someone else once, I tell them. Someone who didn't know his own worth. Then I learned, and everything changed. I never tell them about Emma, about Logan, about the man who stood in a hallway 2 years ago and made the hardest choice of his life. That story belongs to someone I used to be, someone who had to break completely before he could rebuild into something unbreakable. Sometimes late at night, when Olivia's asleep beside me and the city lights paint shadows across our bedroom ceiling, I think about that Tuesday evening in September. The moment everything fell apart. The moment I finally understood that sometimes falling apart is how you learn to stand stronger. Emma had been right about one thing. I'd never leave. Logan Pierce never would have. He'd have stayed and forgiven and slowly died inside while pretending everything was fine. But Connor Reed, he walked away from everything that diminished him. He built a life of quiet strength and genuine love. He learned that the opposite of love isn't hate. It's indifference. And he discovered that peace isn't found in closure or forgiveness or understanding why people hurt you. Peace is found in building something so beautiful that the past becomes irrelevant. In waking up every morning next to someone who chooses you the way you choose them. in being so completely yourself that you stop mourning who you used to be. Emma had believed I'd never leave. She'd been wrong. I left so thoroughly that I disappeared into someone new. Someone better. Someone who finally understood that walking away from what hurts you isn't giving up. It's giving yourself permission to become who you were always meant to be. And that version of me, he's finally, completely, perfectly free.